Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now? We've only had a couple of weeks off. What have we missed? Probably not too much, I wonder. We're back for the Flagship podcast here on the Celts are here. I am Quinny, and I am joined again, as ever, by Josh. Josh, good to see you, mate. Hail, hail.
Good to see you, Connie. Good to be back in the pod. Obviously, a wee break in action, but good to be back discussing all things Celtic today.
Yeah, and it's funny because even though we've been off for like a week or something like that, you know, we've got a lot to get through in the show today, and we've got Michael joining us as well. Michael, good to see you, mate. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail. Good to be on the show, Connie. Excited to talk about Celtic.
Well, we've got a lot to get through, and you see, over the last kind of week or so, I do feel that even though there's been a lot going on, it's been a little bit of the same stuff, different day, isn't it? You know, it's just been moaning about transfers and left backs and all this stuff. But really, over the last 36 hours or so, there's been, there's a few more ingredients been chucked into the soup that is Celtic news this week. You know, we've got that kind of the disconnect again from the scoreline, from the performance. Celtic beating Motherwell by 3-1, which, it's good to keep that pace, keep that momentum with the other side of the city who are now running in top position at the moment. But the performance again has got fans split all over the place with what is the best 11, what direction are we going in, and does anyone know what they're doing? Michael, your first time on the show. How did you feel about the Celtic Motherwell game at the weekend?
I think there was positives, and the one thing I would say about this season is we've got to stay positive. I think Brendan Rodgers will stay until the end of the season at the minimum. I don't think he's going to leave. So we need to work on the positives and build on them instead of focusing on negatives. We're all aware of what the negatives are in the side, but from the weekend, we look at Adam Idah. I think he looks a brilliant striker. We look at Yang. He looked in great form, and I think that comes from the Asian Cup. So all the positives in the side, we've got to build on them. And even Lewis Palmer getting a goal, we might not have had the best performance, but coming off the bench to get a goal was really good for him. And it was great to see him put that message to his former teammate in the situation that's going on there. So it was a great performance in the second half, but in the first half, it was well below the standard, and it's what we've came to expect throughout the season.
Yeah, I would echo the thoughts that you need to stay positive, particularly at a time when you're going for a title. And it's a very close title fight, something we've not really been used to in recent years as Celtic supporters. And the last thing you really want when you're going into one of those is divide and division within the support. So if we can rally around the team and the manager, perhaps he's maybe not the manager a lot of people want in charge, and he's not the manager a lot of people think is capable of winning this title. But if you back him and the supporters rally around the team and the players, then who knows what can happen between now and the end of the season. But just on the game itself, the first half performance, we all seen it. It was just so bad. It was so reminiscent of games gone by, the Kilmarnock game last weekend when it was one each, the Aberdeen game up at Pittodrie, just slow, pedestrian, failing to even string a couple of passes together when we're playing out for the back. Very concerning. But the second half comes and I feel like it was much better in the second half. Yang made a big difference to the game. He's a player I think can make a decent impact going forward now. Adam Idah obviously comes on, gets his brace. He's continuing to go from strength to strength in a Celtic jersey. That's now a goal every 59, or a goal contribution every 59 minutes now. A lot of people doubting. He's saying not so much doubting the signing, but not the most encouraging. Let's just say that, just the way in which he was signed and his attributes before he came, his record at Norwich, etc., etc. But he comes in and he's done a great job for Celtic so far. Then obviously Louis Palmer getting a goal in stoppage time. So good to get those goals in the scoreline. I would say the scoreline reflects the second half performance, not the first half performance at all, because that was very poor. But for Celtic now, I feel like it's just about consistency. We've not really had it at any point throughout the season, but if they can find the consistency of that second half performance on Sunday and bring that for the rest of the season, then there is nothing to say that Celtic can't go on and win this title.
Yeah, I think like the form Adam Idah's shown already has been like you say, it's been a huge impact on, how we can actually go and attack goal. I put a little tweet out after the game saying I thought Adam Idah was probably Celtic's best midfielder and striker on the day, because he was the only one coming into midfield to try and link up a bit of play, dropping into some pockets. And it was great to see, with him and Iwata, and we've seen it with Yang as well. When they come on, these players that are trying to break into the team, you really want to see them, really grab the game by the scruff of the neck if at all possible. Now, Iwata kind of had a bit of a different role, and it maybe took him a bit longer to get comfortable, as it were. But like we're saying, like Yang is showing that kind of promise for me all season. Like similar to like Scales. I don't think Scales or Yang really make a bad decision, do the wrong thing ever. It's just really execution that can let them down. You know, maybe the pass is too soft, too hard, goes to the wrong person. You know, out of two or kind of idea. And when that's the situation, you're just waiting for it to click a little bit. You're just waiting for it to, you know, get the rub of the green, get that little bit of synergy with the other players in the team to make it click. And Yang, like, kind of threatened it maybe about a week or two ago. He looked quite tidy, I think, coming off the bench. I forget what the game was. But along with Idah, he had someone else in that same kind of train of thought as him. You know, together that front line just totally changed with the two of them coming on. And that's, you know, what you need with Celtic in particular. One thing I think Rodgers has struggled with, even he's talking about quality all the time, is if you remember when like Scott Sinclair came in, for example, Scott Sinclair and Adam Idah in some regards are kind of similar in the sense of when they came to Celtic, they were deemed like they're not going to play Premier League level. They're not a Premier League starter in that regard. But for all the players we've got at Celtic who are ambitious and think like, oh, I might be moving up in the world, you know, come the summer or after a good Champions League performance. If you've got a guy like this making that kind of impact on the pitch, and you would imagine on the training pitch as well, it does just wake everyone else up to the fact of, wow, that guy was in a team that, you know, get relegated, you know, and he couldn't, you know, and he wasn't scoring mad goals. So if I can't keep him out of the team or I can't outperform him, then maybe there's some illusions of grandeur here on people's current ability. So it's maybe a bit of a wake-up call for some of the other ones, which I'm hoping to see as well. Because Idah, that was the first, you know, my main kind of thing about the signing was I'd rather loan a guy that's of that level than spend 4 or 5 million on a Miovski, as it were. And I think, like, because he's got that experience of playing down there already, there's a wee bit of that. I don't know if it's respect is quite the word, you know, but you give the guy kudos, you know, probably when he comes into the training ground and when he's playing, like, well, the guy's played against some of the best that's out there in a small period. So, yeah, great to see that at the weekends from both those guys. And I think they both have to be starting Wednesday now, don't they?
Yeah, certainly. I think Yang and Idah definitely both have to start the game. As Yang, he came on in the St Mirren game in the cup. It was just after he came back for the Asian Cup, and he looked good there, getting down the left hand side. Then also comes on at the weekend and sets up one of the goals, sets up Palma's goal, plays the wee reverse pass into Johnston for Idah's second goal as well. So a really good impact from him in the game, and he offers something different to what other wingers do. I feel like he's more like a, listen, no one can be as good as Jota. I feel in a Celtic jersey, so I was a big fan of him. But I feel like Yang is the closest to what Jota was, that what we have in terms of play style, just flamboyance, the way he carries the ball, the way he plays little reverse passes and crosses. But he's still got a long way to go. He's still developing. He's only 22. He came from the second tier in South Korea. Sorry, that was Kwon. Sorry, he came from the top tier in South Korea. But yeah, he has to start on Wednesday for me. Him, and I'd probably go with Luis Palma because they were the two wingers who came on and made an impact in the game, and Idah. So it's got to be a front three on Wednesday night, I feel.
I thought that he linked up really well with Alistair Johnson. As good as Alistair Johnson's been in his time at the club, he's not had much of an attacking threat. Like, he's missed a lot of chances in front of goal, and even his assist numbers aren't great, even in comparison to Greg Taylor, who, when he does put crosses into the box, Greg Taylor is effective at that. But Yang linked up so well with Johnston, and I think that's something that people are forgetting. We need to be able to get the best out of down that right-hand side with them too. Yeah. And with Johnston, he's so great defensively, and I think even in America, in the MLS, he'd played centre-back in a back five, so he's had a bit of an adaptability to have to play as a fullback in a Celtic team who dominate possession. And I think he's expected to do a lot more in the attacking third than he was in the past. So he's had to adapt to that. And with Yang goes each way. He goes inside, he goes outside. It's unpredictable. And with Johnston's runs into the final third, they were so direct into the box, it was causing so much chaos. And when you're putting those balls along the box into Idah, it's great to see for Celtic. And you want that with a striker like Idah. And I think Idah's skill set's absolutely immense in what he's bringing to the side. His physicality, his hold-up play. I would argue myself personally, his hold-up play looks better than Yakimakis. It looks like he's even more advanced in that part of his game. And aerially, I never even thought his aerial threat was anything particularly special, because when I was looking into him in the games he's played, he hadn't scored a lot of headers. But from to score a header like that out of nowhere, that's what we need in our season. We're at that stage of the season now. We need to find our consistent starting 11. And I know we'll touch on Mike Nawrocki, which is derailed that yet again. We're not going to be able to play Nawrocki against Dundee. But for Yang and Johnston, those two linked up so well, and we've got to build those partnerships in the squad.
Yeah.
I think that's been such a big issue with each part of this squad this season. We've had to link players, different players each week, and it's just not worked. So from now at the end of the season, we need to be building relationships and working on things in training. And when we remember Ange, he had that great link up with wingers, midfielders, and fullbacks that they were all running off each other. The runs seemed seamlessly. But I wouldn't blame Brendan Rodgers personally for that. He's not being able to field consistent players week in, week out.
Yeah, I would completely echo the point in Johnston and Yang. They were really effective together. Just as you were saying, I was going to say on Ange, you looked at Tony Ralston and Liam Abada. See the amount of times Tony Ralston would do that overlap. Abada just plays it into him, and he hangs up across for either Giacomakis or the third midfielder cuts it back from him. So yeah, you need certainly an effective team that wants to win championships needs those partnerships all over the park. And like you say, it's not really been Brendan's fault. He's had several injuries. Johnston's been injured a couple of times this season. It's probably every position in the squad has had an injury. Taylor, we've had injuries at centre back. Joe Hart's been suspended at certain points. Hitate's injured at the minute. Kyogo's been out for a while as well. So it's been very tough with injuries this season, and that makes it harder to gain consistency in the starting 11. Because when you look at last season, under Postecoglou when Celtic won the treble, there was so much consistency in that team, particularly in the second half of the season when there was like one game a week. The only real position you were debating over was Aaron Moy and Matt O'Reilly. The rest of them were really very much first choice. You're going to play no matter what. Whereas now, there are so many debates over who plays. We're making half-time subs to try and change games. You're bringing on guys like Yang and Palma. The whole front three was different to the front three that started the game on Sunday. And all the front three make their contributions towards the win. So now it's about if they come in on Wednesday night and they are effective yet again and they play well yet again, they go to Tynecastle on Sunday and they start. And once that consistency is there, and because there's not as many games now, I feel like it's easier to kind of build those relationships and partnerships because there's less games, so there's less chance of injury. So there's more of a chance that these guys are going to be playing together each week, more time in the training pitch as well to develop, and hopefully just it only leads to more positive things.
Yeah. In terms of that consistency, like you say, when Nawrocki being injured, we've seen Carter Vickers come off the bench, but it is like, I think it's quite clear that Carter Vickers for the rest of his Celtic career is going to be under minute management, going forward. I don't think there's much getting away from that. Even when he is going to be at peak fitness, they're not going to want him breaking down again, So no Nawrocki means we don't really have much of a luxury because, as I understand it as well, Welsh isn't in the picture, and people are saying to me Lagerbielke is set to be on the bench for this one all of a sudden. So Carter Vickers is probably going to be coming in, you would think anyway, to start the Dundee game. But part of the consistency that we've missed, the centre-back partnership with Scales has been the big thing this year because it's been Lagerbielke, it's been Nawrocki, it's been Welsh, it's been Vickers, depending on who's been fit. But it's also been in midfield. It's been McGregor and O'Reilly and who, and we got Iwata at the weekend. I think a lot of people have been crying out for that for ages. I know he's not been completely available and fit the entire time. And I know his performance at the weekend did definitely divide. But I think it was clear to see as the game went on with Iwata and with, a little bit with Idah as well, that they're still getting their lines with their teammates, and adjusting, to, how high can I be up the pitch if the ball was lost for me to recover, in behind in the Nawrocki, or if you're thinking about Iwata, that kind of thing. So I think as the game went on, he got more and more comfortable. And I think at Celtic Park, especially, because this is obviously the next match we're playing Dundee, I think Iwata's presence in there might help a little bit of the workload we've got on Carter Vickers immediately. And it should hopefully give us that bit of consistency into the midfield as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Tomoki Iwata. I don't know a lot of fans who are in the same boat, but I really like him in the game on Sunday. I feel like as it went on, he got more into the game and he took control of that game. I think it was evident a lot of the fans were impressed by him, that they were booing him. I don't know if the cameras picked up on it, but I was at the game and a lot of fans were ringing the boos when he was brought off for Paulo Bernardo going into the last 15, 20 minutes. And Bernardo came on, listen, he'd done all right, he'd done the job, and Celtic going to get the victory. But if Celtic didn't get the victory there, and I feel like Brendan Rodgers would be getting hounded for the decision to bring Iwata off if Adam Idah and Luis Palma didn't score in stoppage time. So I would say that. But on Iwata, he's kind of struggled to gain consistency in his Celtic career. The only run he had really was at the end of last season when he played centre-back a couple of times and started in the Scottish Cup final. And obviously he was beginning to get a run of games at the end of the calendar year 2023, and then picks up his injury against Feyenoord. But listen, came back into the team Sunday, done really well, and I feel like he has to start on Wednesday night, like you were saying, Quinny, as well. Just gives that security in the middle of the park that few other players do. Celtic don't have many naturally defensive holding midfielders. Like Callum Gregor, I wouldn't even say is a natural holding midfielder. He started his career as a winger. So Iwata is really one of the only ones at the club now that are not out on loan. So yeah, I highly rate him. Listen, you don't get J-League Player of the Year for when was it 2022, I think, and you're not a good player. He is a quality player, and I seen him at the game. The likes of Scales and Nawrocki, who are not the most experienced players, despite them being like 23 and 25 years of age. Now Iwata has been a J-League champion, like I've just said, J-League Player of the Year, won a treble with Celtic. Just comes over to them at certain points in the game, is just coaching them, telling them where to play the ball. Give me it here, I'll do this, I'll do that. And he was talking to guys like Adam Idah as well when they were playing. So it was really good to see that from Iwata. Seems like a kind of more of the experienced kind of leadership players in the squad. So I highly rate him. Michael, what do you think of his performance on Sunday?
I would say on that it's quite hard to gauge with McGregor and Iwata because undoubtedly Iwata is better defensively, whereas McGregor maybe gives you a little bit more going forward. So ideally, we would find a balance between the two of them and a player who would have each skill set. But that's where we'll find problems. With McGregor, we'll likely concede more goals, but we'll create more chances. And with Iwata, we'll likely concede less, but maybe that will affect chance creation. So it's quite a difficult situation. I can see what each player gives the side, and they've got great skill sets, each of them. But it's so difficult for Rodgers to make that decision. But with Iwata, if he keeps it simple, and that's what he always does, it's effective. And against Dundee on Wednesday, if we can score an early goal, that's the most important thing. I think with Iwata on the side, as long as we score goals early, I'm happy. But if it goes later in the games, I can see why Rodgers makes that substitution to bring Bernardo on. And I know people were maybe frustrated at that, but if you're losing or drawing a game and you've got Iwata on and McGregor's playing more advanced, it's a no-brainer to take Iwata off, move McGregor deeper, and bring on another striker or another attacking midfielder. So that's really my point of view on it. And with the midfield, I think our midfield's is arguably in a bit of a crisis, in my opinion, because O'Reilly looks below form. You're asking McGregor at this age to play further forward again, even though he's been playing a little bit deeper, so he's having to adapt to that. You're asking a lot of players. Bernardo's fell below the standards, so that's really affected our midfield and the chance creation, whereas we're becoming a bit more reliant on forward areas with Idah. Idah's really doing so much for the side when he comes on. And I don't think that's Kyogo's fault, because you're asking Kyogo to play a completely different role and arguably a completely different system, but Rodgers would say different. So with Idah, he's helping the midfield better. But then with McGregor, it's quite a debate actually with McGregor, because does McGregor start? Because is McGregor as effective as a number 8 as he is as a number 6 now at this age? Because he is older. If he was 27, you could see why he would play as a number 8 at Celtic. But now he's playing deeper, and he's become so adept at that role. Whereas with Iwata, do you play Iwata, McGregor, and O'Reilly and ask O'Reilly to play further forward? And you can see why that was effective with O'Reilly further forward earlier in the season. So maybe that's how I'd go about it with O'Reilly, looking to make those runs into the box that he was doing so well, because maybe that gets the best out of O'Reilly. Whereas in the recent month or so, we haven't seen the best out of O'Reilly.
No, it feels like O'Reilly's went downhill since, I would potentially say, the Atletico Madrid links. Obviously signed that new contract last year, and he went scored the winner against Motherwell like a couple of hours after it. He signed it on the morning of the game, and then goes and scores, and obviously has a brilliant first half of the season. And the links to Atletico Madrid were a testament to how well he was doing. But like you said, Michael, the past couple of weeks and months, it's the fall and dip in his form has been very concerning, not just for himself but for the team, because the first half of the campaign, Celtic were heavily reliant on O'Reilly's contributions. There were a couple of games where he was the difference. St Johnstone away, I think it was, he scored an absolute screamer to put Celtic in front. The game eventually finished 3-1, but that goal was pivotal. So we really need, particularly going into this run in, it's going to be some crucial games, 2 more derbies to come, potentially a Scottish Cup semi-final and final. You need your top players to be in top form, particularly when you're in a title race as well. And as close as it is, you need O'Reilly to really be stepping up his game. Listen, I know he's only 23 and he's still quite a young player who's really only come into this talismanic role over the past 6 to 7 months, but you really want a player like him to step up and be counted going into these next few months and weeks.
I hear a lot of this stuff coming from a lot of Celtic fans about McGregor like playing further forwards and stuff like that. And I think, do you not think that's a bit of a, he's 30. You know what I mean? He's not 38. You know, playing an attacking mid, it's not that different to where he's been going. And he has been getting further. Like, I think, see for both midfielders, the main problem with both of them is that they're just not getting into the box, like, periods. Like, if you think about the Motherwell game, McGregor and O'Reilly both played some lovely passes, maybe about 3 between the two of them, but they were from like 40 yards out, like going diagonally across field, trying to get maybe Maeda or Kyogo or something in behind. They never got in and around the box. And again, if you think about like the good parts of the game, like Yang and Alistair Johnson linking up edge of the box, ball gets fired across for, is that Palmer's goal? I think it might have been. But these guys aren't doing that at all. You know, O'Reilly's best form for us, like, I remember being on this channel saying he's like our little version of Kevin De Bruyne. He was right up next to Kyogo. He was like a big attacking midfielder, striker, pressing. And then when he was on the ball, he was playing the final pass or taking the shot. But now he's like in build-up play with the right back and with the defensive mid. And we're letting Motherwell or any team build like a castle in front of their box. And we're playing on the outside of it. No one's actually like going into it, penetrating in between the lines. McGregor and O'Reilly, and with Iwata playing, they really had no excuse not to, because that's his job, is to give you the license to take some space when you see it, or double up when we need a bit of help on one side of the pitch. And I don't know if the excuse is maybe it's the first time they've played with Iwata in like forever, but I really do feel that both the midfielders, especially McGregor, were just playing facing their nose the whole game. They never looked to play into space. They never looked to play the lines. Like, McGregor was just the ultimate wall passer at the weekend. Anything that came to him, he would just play it the way he was facing first time. Boom. Back to Scales, back to Taylor, back to Nawrocki or Vickers or whatever. I wouldn't ever try. Like, you were at the game, Josh. Anyone who was at the game, try and think about the amount of times McGregor passed to O'Reilly. I'll tell you this because I watch out for it. There was one sequence in the second half, I think, and it resulted in one of O'Reilly's balls that he played, I think, a bit further forward. You've got two midfielders that are meant to be the main attacking players, and they are opposite ends of the pitch from each other at all times. You're never going to cut a team open, you know? So I don't know if that's their problem or the manager's problem or the tactics problem, but I don't think it's to do with age and Atletico Madrid and all that kind of stuff. I think it's really the instructions they've got, because if you were asking midfielders to do that stuff and they weren't doing it, you would have subbed one of them. So the fact that they both played the full game, and you know, so that's kind of where I fall on the midfield.
Yeah. If you talk about the instructions, you wonder why Brendan Rodgers is, well, maybe if he's changed it or whatever's happened, slight tactical tweaks. You know more than us, going, you're obviously a licensed coach and stuff like that. But
he did say that he's not changed it, which confused me watching the side. Everybody can see tactical changes, even the most simple tactical changes with players, their movement. And why not just admit that? It's really confusing why he would just come out and say we're playing the exact same system. I wouldn't expect a manager to come into a new club and play the exact same system as he played before, because you're your own manager. You have your own coach. Well, he doesn't have his own coaching staff, actually, but you actually change things in the side. So why would Rodgers say that he's just kept Ange's system? That just makes him look a little bit less credible than he should. He should be like, I wanted to make this side better. I wanted to make tactical adjustments. Whether they've worked or not, he should have doubled down on that. And saying that he's not changed it and just confused me. You can even see with the side O'Reilly was playing further forward. As Quinny said earlier in the season, he was playing more as a number 10 behind Kyogo and right up alongside him at times. And with O'Reilly, I think at times that got the best out of him. But at the same time, it kind of affected chance creation. So we were getting so much out of O'Reilly, but we weren't getting as much of a balance and maybe in midfield as from the numbers. Be like Paulo Bernardo, he wasn't really contributing or even playing in the first 6 months of the season. We had Turnbull, he was scoring penalties and then he's eventually left. But with that, it's a difficult one to gauge with Celtic as well with that, how we're going to find a balance. Because if Hatate comes back in the next month or so, things will change again. And in my opinion, he won't drop McGregor. He's a captain. I just don't see him dropping him. And does that mean Iwata drops out the side again, even though fans are very happy with Iwata, but he's contributing? So it's even more difficult to see where we go in the next month or so, because undoubtedly Rio Hatate brings something different to this side. And he's got that relationship with McGregor and O'Reilly. And will Rodgers adopt that because they've got that experience of winning the title? And does that mean Iwata just completely drops out the side? And after the reaction at the weekend, are the supporters going to be happy with that?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. Certainly, just on the confusion. Comments came out last week for Brendan that this team is playing fast, attacking football. And that really confused me because what I've seen from Celtic over the past few weeks is anything but fast, particularly in the first half on Sunday. It was slower than a week in the jail. So it was that those comments confused me definitely. But on the midfield debate, although it's going to split opinion regardless of what happens. It's good dilemmas to have. Like you have a player like Rio Hatate, who's one of Celtic's best players last season. Had some absolutely brilliant performances coming back into the team for a run in. It's only positive to have these debates, and be interesting to see where Brendan goes with it because we've not really seen Rio get a real run under the manager. He's struggled with injuries so much this season. I think we touched on it in the last pod, Quinny. He's played something like 4 full 90s or something like that throughout the season. So I'm really excited to see how he does. But at the same time, it's going to be interesting to see how the Iwata situation is managed.
Yeah, big time. Because I do think that, Hatate is the glue that we're definitely missing. But if Iwata does keep this up, I was just looking at it. Iwata at the weekend completed 4 interceptions and 2 tackles, which if you look at the form of all the other midfielders over the last 5, Iwata's not far. He's only played 1 game in the last 5, obviously, compared to everyone else. So, and again, I think a lot of those statistics were probably captured later in the game, stopping counter-attacks from Motherwell and stuff. But if you've got a real defensive presence in there, you get the real playmaker back in Hatate, then it does become really difficult to get that midfield. Like, if you're going to be like objective about it, like Ange probably would have been, because he doesn't get pally with the players and all that. He'd be picking the best team, kind of thing. And yeah, it's definitely because McGregor, if he's not going to be playing, he is in the Hatate position here. Basically, he should be carrying the ball past somebody. He should be arriving in little pockets of space to then play around the corner for a winger or something. And if he's not doing that, as soon as Hatate's back, if Iwata keeps up this kind of shield effort, and if he can get better at it, because really now the job of Celtic and the job of Rodgers is building a team that's going to win the next 2 derby games. That's the job he needs to do. That's the only, and if you're building a team that's going to do that, we should be sweeping everyone away as we're kind of getting towards that. And yeah, because even though we don't need Iwata against Dundee at home, we're going to need Iwata fully up to speed for the biggest games of the season if he's going to be called upon, Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting come Dundee, because that Dundee at home again, like I even think Maeda will start over Palma in this one, because I think you need that kind of consistency with if it's going to be Yang and Idah, I think you'll probably get a better tune out of Dyson with the dynamism that they were kind of offering. In that one, but again, I hear a lot of different contrasting kind of opinions and thoughts on that one. But I do think you're building a team to beat Rangers now for the rest of the season. So that's the way you need to think about every game is, would we play this team against them? Because if it's not, then why?
Yeah, definitely. The derby games are going to be crucial. They're absolute 6-pointers, 2 of them to go. You look at the gap.
Call them 9-pointers, mate. At this point,
yeah, definitely. The gap's sitting at 2 points now. In those games, are just going to be absolutely massive. The first one at Ibrox, it's probably positive for Celtic that the post-split one's at Parkhead. Listen, I don't want to get too bogged down with Derby chat now, so still got
yeah, of course. It's just that just comes to my mind when I think about who he would pick. So I think if that's the only thing you've got to be thinking about is
because they're the massive games that matter, particularly in this title race. Everyone's saying it's going to come down to the derbies, and there's no getting away from that because it is. So it's just about getting the results. I think there's 4 or 5 games to go before it. So if Celtic can get wins under their belt and all of the ones in the league, obviously you want to win the cup game against Livy as well, build that momentum in terms of the results and the starting lineup as well, and things will only bode well.
Well, arguably, I would say that there's 2 players in the midfield that I would definitely start against Rangers, and that's Paulo Bernardo and O'Reilly, because they're both proven themselves this season and what they can do. And with Rio Hatate, that's if he can rush him back. I'm not 100% sure what the timescale is going to be with Rio Hatate. He might actually be up against it, in 100% all honesty, if he can make it back in time and get that game time before the game. Is it going to be that sort of situation with Callum McGregor in the derby a couple of years ago where he comes back from an injury, you just put him straight into the starting 11? And if so, what does that say about Paulo Bernardo or even Iwata if both of them drop out the side? So it's a difficult one there again. I'm trying not to sit in the fence here, but Rodgers has so many dilemmas with these players and what he's going to do. And he's a bold manager. He'll know what he wants to do. With Bernardo, he thrives in that sort of game. When you look at Bernardo's statistics, he's quite good at his interceptions. He's maybe more of a physical player than in Rio Hatate, so he brings that aspect, and that's up to Rodgers. But if you're playing against a packed defence, I would personally favour Hatate, because Hatate has an amazing skill set. He can drop deep, take the ball from the defenders. At times we've lacked that. He plays that final pass. He's dribbling, even he's finishing from distance and in the box. That's something that we'll need. And I'm honestly, I'm probably praying for Hatate to come into this side and save our season. Realistically, he's the one player that we've not seen much of this season that can come into the side and make a big difference. But that's a lot of pressure. And even in the first 6 months of the season, he was injured. His relationship with Rodgers was even questioned. A lot of people forget about that. There was talks of him leaving in the summer transfer window. So realistically, I hope that we can get a Hatate back into the side and see what he can do. But the most important thing for me is that consistent game time before the derby. And if he's up against it, I wouldn't just put him straight into the side, because you're leaving yourself open to a disaster there with a player who's just coming back from a long-term injury yet again that's niggled up from the Asian Cup. He was put straight back into the side. That's a problem at Celtic that I don't think a lot of people talk about enough. When we bring players back from an injury, we're sort of over-reliant on them. With Carter Vickers, it's no coincidence that he comes back from an injury and gets injured again. So we're rushing players back, even if their contribution to the side's great, but they won't be making any contribution if they're out injured again. So the most important thing for me is to work on Rio Hatate's rehabilitation, get him back into the side, and hopefully he's had enough game time before the derby.
Yeah, with Hatate, particularly with the strength Celtic have got in the midfield in terms of numbers, like you say, be confident in Paulo Bernardo starting the game at Ibrox, because what he done in the last derby, scored and he had a brilliant performance. O'Reilly, McGregor, Iwata's coming into the team now. With those players, you can afford to breed Rio Hatate in gradually, like half an hour at the end of the game, 20 minutes at the end of the game, and you're not kind of, like you said, over-relying and bringing him in, and that's down to the strength that's currently in the team at the minute.
With Hatate, he was injured on the 31st of January, and on the 2nd of February, we were told he'd be out for 5 to 6 weeks.
Right.
So
we are. Yeah. So that's about 3 weeks ago then.
Yeah.
So is it a 6 to 8 week injury as well? So I'm not 100% sure. There's not
5 to 6 weeks.
5 to 6 weeks.
That was the last thing we were told on the 2nd of Feb.
Right. 1, 2, 3. So that'll be 4 weeks ago come Friday. So 15th of
season training. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good thing actually. So when he's due back would be about the 15th of March. We've got St Johnstone at home on the Saturday, and then there's an international break, and then we play Livingston away, and then it's the derby. So potentially play him for 15 minutes of that St Johnstone game, gets the international break, half an hour against Livy, then he's potentially on the bench for Ibrox. But yeah.
One of the things, so we've obviously picked the bones over the Motherwell game, kind of looking ahead into Dundee as well, just the overall picture of the squad and where we're all kind of going. And, you know, it's definitely something that's been on this channel a fair bit. I think every Celtic fan media has had a little bit of writing their own narrative on the Celtic season, as it were, where the club are going and all the rest of it. But Rodgers wasn't really having any of that, was he? He's telling us that he's going to be writing the narratives now, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was it? Writing. There's been a story written about this Celtic team. This Celtic team will write their own story. Stuff like that. So listen, I think what Rodgers is trying to do is he's trying to build an us versus them narrative with the media, the mainstream media at least, let's be honest here. And if he's building that and he's saying that in his press conferences and in his post-match interviews, make no mistake, he will be doing that with the players behind closed doors. And he'll be getting to build that us versus them narrative, that the players are going out and proving people wrong and wanting to do that. So that's what I feel he's trying to do. It's what he's trying to manage the team like and build them towards. But listen, I don't know, the some of the comments after he said they write their own story, what was it saying, good girl to the BBC reporter Jane Lewis. I feel like there's a lot being made of it and it's not what it actually is. It's a completely innocent comment from Rodgers. I mean, if you listen to the interview again, granted, it does sound a bit condescending and a bit weird. However, I feel like from Rodgers, he's a 50-year-old guy, 52-year-old guy. He doesn't really know much about stuff like that, in terms of like, it's not acceptable to say that. Listen, he'll be aware of it, but at the same time, he didn't mean it in that manner. I feel he called the Sky Sports reporter Luke Shanley before it a good man after the interview as well. He's called me son at press conferences before, so I feel like there's been too much made out of it over what it actually is. And listen, he'll probably apologise about it today because he'll be asked about it, no doubt, in the press conference. But I don't think it should go any more further than that, and potentially just people trying to not divide the club, but just trying to get a sense of cohesion at Celtic at the minute, which is the last thing Celtic fans need. The Celtic fans will just need to rally around the club, rally around the manager, back the manager, and like you were touching on earlier, Michael, just give them that support and back and all unite together, because that's what you need in a title race, and just completely ignore stuff like this that's coming through the mainstream media.
I think there's only two people that can really answer about it. It's Jane Lewis and Brendan Rodgers themselves. How Jane Lewis felt and what Brendan Rodgers meant. Everybody else can say what they want to say about it, but it's realistically down to those two. How did Jane Lewis felt when he said it, and what did Brendan Rodgers mean? Even Eamon Holmes, who I think's from a similar part of Ireland than Brendan Rodgers, spoke about how it's a common phrase. And I can't verify that, but I don't see why Eamon Holmes would just come out of nowhere and say that. So every different country has different dialects and different sayings. So Brendan Rodgers isn't from Glasgow or around Scotland, so he's not going to say the same stuff as we say. So you need to look at it in that point of view. But at the same point, I can see exactly why it's been criticised, and it was maybe a poor choice of words. But I'm sure Rodgers will address that today, and I think even Jane Lewis might come out and say what she thought about the issue.
Yeah, definitely. I would echo that, and she probably will. Listen, the BBC have asked for an apology from Brendan. They'll probably get one in the press conference. He'll say something like, "It's just a wrong choice of words, etc." I like to say Eamon Holmes, I think he hosted an event with Celtic at the Hydro when Brendan Rodgers was in charge before, and chatted to him. So they do have a relationship there, Brendan Rodgers and Eamon Holmes. So obviously it's, like you said,
Odd double act, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's all about different people, different sayings, and like you said, the only ones who actually know what went on was those two. As much as you want to make a meal out of it, like a lot of people have,
that is media, isn't it? They just want to make a story out of any situation.
That's the way it is. But I don't even know. I feel like if Jane Lewis felt that bad about it, she might have said something by now. But you never know. I'm not entirely sure, and I don't really know the ins and outs of it. No one really does. Just have to wait and see what happens. But you just want it swept under the carpet, because it's really something out of nothing, I feel like.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm at with it as well. It's one of those ones where, yeah, I was at a press conference with him. He's very colloquial in that sense, you know, where he's calling everyone son and all that kind of stuff. So
term of endearment, isn't it? So some people like to make that as a friendly approach to people to make them feel comfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
at least he didn't call her pet or something, you know, like
yeah, I know. That's
you know. So, but one thing that's definitely, I think, going from bad to worse, and we kind of were speaking about this back in January. It was just, I thought it was going to be an inevitable thing that Abada would have left in January. I don't know why we kept him, because now we're in this situation where I'm reading reports where people are talking about the desire to rip up contracts and all this caper. We've got heavy links for Abada to go on loan to either Austin FC or Atlanta United. And apparently he was pictured at the Hollywood Bowl during the game at the weekend there. So,
that was...
So Abada is checked out, hasn't he? He is. Why wasn't he sold in January, guys? Can someone explain that to me? How is this a surprise?
Yeah, it mystifies me as to why he wasn't. The way I can think of it is the MLS transfer window is open until the 23rd of April. And I think the Austin and the Atlanta United links are actually permanent deals. And Abada's willing, according to the report that surfaced from Israel this morning, that he's willing to give up some of the transfer fee that he'd be due from Celtic from the transfer so he can get the deal over the line, because he just wants out. Listen, we know the situation, everyone knows the situation. Brendan said he's not wanting to play, and it's quite evident that he doesn't want to play, enjoying a wee game of bowling while his teammates are fighting for a hard-earned 3 points in a crucial title race. He's out getting pictures with fans. He looked quite a happy guy. So his head's not in it anymore, that's clear. And the January transfer window, the MLS transfer window is Still got a long way to go in it. I assume he'll leave. Potentially a wee link up with Georgios Giakoumakis at Atlanta United. But the question for me is, how much are Celtic going to get for him? Because he still has a lengthy amount left in his contract, time-wise. And given what he's contributed to Celtic over the past couple of years, goals, assists, his numbers are incredible for his age, and he's still quite young. So I think Celtic should be as much as they want to saga over him, want to sell him, they still should be looking for a decent fee here.
I think that headline had a poor choice of words. It talked about writing up the contract, whereas when I read the article, it didn't actually say that. Sometimes articles can be misleading in that way. They meant more on the wages. So with Iwata, he's really just wanting to get out here as quickly as possible. Money's not a problem. But Celtic seem to have this issue, and I've had it for years, to give players long contracts, and these crazy freak injuries come out of nowhere. You look at Stephen Welsh, what happened to him? He got injured the same day he was signing a contract. Who could have foreseen this Iwata situation turning into this 6 months ago? I think it was beginning to maybe escalate in the backgrounds. But even in the article I read today, they were talking about he was verbally attacked in the street. Now, that's just came out of nowhere today. Yeah. I hadn't seen anything about that. So I can't confirm or deny whether that has happened. But obviously somebody's spoken to the press and said that, or they wouldn't have put that in an article. So with Iwata, if maybe things like that have been ongoing, but as we can all agree, the majority of the Celtic support is behind Liel Iwata. But at the same point, I can understand what he's going through, where you see the Palestinian flag, and he is Israeli, and obviously he's born in Israel. So that's his situation in itself. With Iwata, it's the best thing is to get him out of the club as quickly as possible. As Quinny said, why didn't we get rid of him in January? But with the MLS, there is good wages in the MLS. And I think they were talking about in the article I read as well, the designated player. So that would be very important for a player like Liel Iwata. For America, they're always looking to maybe get in some younger players as well, because over the years, they've maybe had this history of getting experienced players in towards the twilight of their career. So with Iwata, he could either go to Austin, and they were talking about they think that Iwata could lead them to the playoffs, or he could go to Atlanta and work with Giakoumakis, and obviously they've got a great relationship. And they even speak about in the article how that Giakoumakis and that transfer, they feel that they built up a good relationship with Celtic. And hopefully that will just happen, because realistically, Iwata isn't going to contribute anything greatly to Celtic in the last 6 months of the season. But for me, the transfer fee is just, if he leaves on a transfer fee and not a loan move, the transfer fee is going to completely fall apart. It's not going to be what it was maybe even 6 months ago, in all honesty. Even though Iwata arguably in some ways was more talented than Jota with his goal scoring, Iwata's a very clinical finisher. He maybe struggles sometimes with his chance creation, but for a player so young to have that skill set and making those late runs into the box, Iwata was a great young player, a great find. But for me, we've just got to get a situation sorted. It's not good to have that situation lingering in the background. There's so many small situations, and at a club like Celtic, they all just build up into bigger news stories, and it affects the club as much as Brendan Rodgers and the players would say it doesn't. It ultimately does at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think with the article, the Israeli one, some of the comments in it were just unfounded. They were saying that, listen, obviously we don't know what happens, but one of them said the Celtic supporters are shouting abuse at Iwata at games. That's just never happened. Like, listen, some stuff might happen at the sidelines when he's going to take a throw in or a corner, but I imagine that never happened. I remember when he came back for his injury in the Glasgow Derby at Christmas time. He comes on and the applause that boy got was unbelievable. I've rarely in recent times seen a player return from injury and get an applause like that.
I was there for his return. He got a proper good welcome back.
Yeah, definitely. So that was a message that the Celtic support are right behind the player, regardless of what the political climate and situation is. Yet some of the stuff that's been written in the press, particularly in the past 6 months since the situation's escalated, has been unfounded and potentially something the club has to address. But we don't know the ins and outs of what's actually happening in his private life. Obviously, it's a tough situation for him, and I do feel sorry for him. So if you put your shoes in his boots, you'd probably feel the same way as he does, and you'd just want out. Go to the completely other side of the Atlantic, America, brilliant lifestyle over there, far as away from Celtic as you could probably get, rather than apart from moving to Australia or something like that. But yes, it's probably a good move for him as well, because MLS, like you've said, is coming up in the world, and they're looking to get in younger players, young talents now, and it's a league he can thrive in and do well. And he's still only 23 years of age, so it's probably a good move all round for all parties. Obviously, you'd want Celtic to do well, and I feel like they should. And it's going to be tough. I would predict something like 7 million, something like that, 7, 8 million. Not going to get much like a 15, 20 million. But at the end of the day,
No.
it's just the way the situation's gone. You can't really help it. It's one of those ones where it's out with football. Brendan said in one of his press conferences last week that family comes before football, and that the Leila Bada situation right now is a family issue. So that's the way it is, and Celtic can't help that. Other players are just going to need to step up, like we said. Yang, Palma, Maeda, the wingers. They're going to have to be key contributors between now and the end of the season.
I've just had a wee kind of flick around it just to see what's been going on in the transfer window for MLS at the moment. It's definitely unimaginable we get over 10 million euros out of them at this moment in time for a player like Abada. I know we want pounds, but it's just the way all these fees are reported across nations and all that kind of stuff. And like Atlanta and Austin could make it work. The thing with football, I know it sounds like it's happening and everything, but see, as soon as he goes to America, his European career is over. Like, he's not coming back to Europe to do anything. Like, there is a lot of real serious, like, young talent in America, and they really struggle to get the moves into Europe that they think they're worth and they think they want. You know, there's guys over there already like Thiago Almada and Facundo Torres, whatever, that are like proper amazing, but no one in Europe's going to spend 15, 20 million quid on them. So those clubs don't want to sell for anything less. So, like, if Abada does have aspirations of like Champions League, Premier League, La Liga, all this kind of stuff, like, if he goes to America, he's not coming back for a while. But I think Celtic's best hope of this is like 7 million quid and slap a huge transfer, like, you know, selling.
Yeah, it's put like 20%. Like,
in case you get lucky that the agents are on overtime and try and bring him back pronto. But so many better players haven't returned, you know. So when I seen the links come out, I just thought I would find it unusual, but it's one of those ones where it's the only window open, and it's one of those ones. But I think Celtic have definitely shot himself in the foot here by not moving him in January. Same with the Joe Hart thing as well, right? Because Joe Hart's announced his retirement, and Brendan's words were, "Now we can plan ahead." He said like that. He said that sentence at some point, and I'm thinking there's no chance in a month of Sundays that Celtic, Joe Hart, Brendan Rodgers, and everyone in between didn't know before the January window that Joe Hart would retire at the end of the season. Because there's no way Joe Hart wouldn't tell you that before a January transfer window in good conscience, or as soon as they
Scott Bain for the first game of the season in the league next season.
Oh, I wonder what the odds are for that.
That was it. See, the very first message I got was from McBride, who does a show with me here, and he said, if we finish second, Scott Bain's playing qualifiers for Europe.
Yeah.
You know it?
Yeah.
And it just made sent a shiver down my spine even now.
Yeah. Just on the qualifiers, just going a bit of a divergence. I was doing a bit of digging. I was speaking to one of the guys on the Scotland's coefficient, I think it is. He runs the page there. So I was asking him basically, how's the situation going to work with Celtic for Champions League qualifiers if they don't win the league? And he said they go into the third round, and then they'd have to go through the playoff as well. So it's 2 rounds. And as things stand now, the way the coefficient tables are, Celtic are seeded for both of those rounds, which could be a huge positive. So Champions League qualification is within Celtic's grasp if they don't win the league. But obviously you want to win the league and get that guaranteed. But Joe Hart retirement probably came not much of a surprise. Obviously I somewhat have a suspicion that it could be Bain for the first game of next season, which, like you say, Connie, does send a shiver down the old spine. It was weird. He was on the same Ryanair flight as me to Mallorca last summer in June. So he's not living a lavish lifestyle as Scotty Bain, but listen, he's a reliable number 2, as Brendan's labelled him in the past. And if you need him to come in and play the first game of the season at home to Ross County or something in the league, he could probably do it for you. It's just the Champions League qualifiers that really anger supporters, that they've in the past, Celtic have a record for not getting the signings in time for those crucial games, and it's cost them in the past in terms of qualification. In Brendan's first spell in charge, it has. So just need to get planning now. Should have been planning before this, because we're almost in March now. But you never know. We'll see if they can get a solid number 1 in the door. Cliven Kelleher was linked in the past. I don't think that's one that's going to happen. Just transfer fee be through the roof, given his performance in Sunday in the League Cup final for Liverpool. 15 million, I think they rejected a bid for him in the January window, so that's probably unrealistic, and probably need to look at look at other targets links to it's the Turkish keeper Sakir. I have no clue how to pronounce his name. Plays for Trabzonspor, over 200 appearances for them, 12 years at the club, Turkey internationalist. Could be a good one. Celtic have reportedly sent scouts to watch this guy because he wants out of Trabzonspor because of how poorly they are now. They're sitting something like 25 points behind in the league. They're sitting third in the Turkish table. He's 27 years of age, just coming into his prime years as a goalkeeper. So that could be an interesting one to watch. Quinny, you've got some stats up here.
Just that is a wee bit of form for him.
He's certainly the thing with signing some of the foreign keepers is it can be tough given
Barkas.
Barkas, yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
We'll never forget that.
There's a bit of reluctance within the club to shell out a significant
Turkey caps as well
on a goalkeeper, yeah. Something like 26 Turkey caps or something like that. So he looks like a quality keeper. But we all said that about our man Vasilis Barkas. But I think with the Barkas thing, that was just a totally tough situation just because of COVID, living in his own, living in a flat. Only time he got to see his teammates was at training, language barrier, etc. So that I think was a one-off with Barkas because of COVID. And the whole season was a one-off. So can't really compare them to guys we're looking to bring in now. But this guy Chakir looks like a decent goalkeeper if we were to bring him in. My number one choice would be Kelleher, but that's probably dead in the water now, let's be honest.
For me, I think we need a serious improvement in the goalkeeping department, particularly in Europe. I think if we have a better goalkeeper who can overperform, it will keep us in games. You look at the Lazio game, we're only too far away. And when you think of Fraser Forster over the last decade of what he done for Celtic in Europe over 2 spells, and it was no coincidence when we had him, we were doing particularly better in Europe. And if we seriously invest... What's up, sorry?
Arthur Boric as well.
Arthur Boric even further back again.
Yeah.
A goalkeeper in that position that can keep you in games is the most important thing. It's not always about playing out for the back in Europe, but obviously and domestically you would be concerned with that. But for me, the most priority would be a goalkeeper who can keep us in games and overperform his expected goals against. That's the most important thing for me. Fraser Forster was putting in immense displays. And I might criticise Joe Hart here, but he's not at that level when he joined Celtic to keep us in games when we were on the back foot. And that's no criticism of him at this stage of his career. But for me, we need to be seriously ambitious in that position who we recruit. Because if we can get a goalkeeper in who's just so immense with their performances, it will take us to another level and it will paper over some cracks in the side. In Europe, how we always seem to fall into the traps of conceding early at times. And if we can just get that sort of goalkeeper that has that experience, you're talking about that goalkeeper, he's experienced at that side, international. Is he the captain as well? Am I right in saying?
Potentially could be. I feel like in that goalkeeping department, I think Celtic missed the boat totally not signing Dominik Livakovic last summer. He could have been the one who comes in, Croatian #1, Dinamo Zagreb, a lot of experience.
I remember sitting that down with the Champions League qualifiers because I think the rumour was he was going to leave after one of the last Champions League qualifiers before the playoff round. So you can see what was going on there. And Celtic just, you're so right, Josh, that is one that got away with his experience. To have a goalkeeper like that would make such a big difference. I think sometimes clubs can be lazy in recruiting goalkeepers, with the exception of your Liverpool's, Man City's, and even Arsenal's. They spend big money on goalkeepers. And that can really be the difference. You look at what Ederson, Alisson done for Liverpool. It completely, Ederson done for Man City. It completely changes sides and what you can do. The goalkeeper needs to be confident on the ball, but at the same time, we need to be seeing that improvement in the shots they face. You have to be the sort of goalkeeper, you're going to face 2, 3, 4 shots a game, and you've got to save all of them at Celtic realistically when you're called upon. And this season, Joe Hart, when I looked at the goals expected that he should concede, he was near the bottom of the league, whereas across the city, Jack Butland was overperforming. And you can see what a goalkeeper that's doing that makes a big difference in Glasgow.
Yeah, goalkeepers, it's one of the most crucial positions on the park. Like you were just touching on there with the European stuff, like Arthur Boric, that Gordon Strachan team should have been nowhere near the heights of beating AC Milan, beating Man United, but some of Boric's performances kept them in those games. You look at the Man United game at home where he saves Luis Saha's penalty. A goalkeeper like that is worth their weight in gold. So the planning should have already started. If it's not, it should be starting now, and they should be looking at a really good top quality keeper, and I think Shaky. Listen, I've not seen anything of him. I've only looked at him for briefly this morning, but he seems like he could potentially fit into that category given some of his numbers for appearances and things like that. But just on the goalkeeping stuff, Benji Siegrist linked with Aberdeen. Obviously, Brendan said so in the Record article. Now, I've not seen any of these quotes for Brendan anywhere, but the article for the Record that initially talked about the Siegrist speculation said that Brendan Rodgers has admitted Celtic could look to sign 2 goalkeepers in the summer transfer window. So I've not seen anything of those comments anywhere, but that is just
I've
what
seen
the
the quotes, but I've never seen him actually say it. You're right in saying that.
Yeah.
I've seen the quotes, but
yeah, I don't know.
Must be
So
true.
I would assume it would be a number 1 and then a number 2 to replace the Siegrist role in the team. But if you've got that, why not bring up one of the academy boys? Josh Clark looks like a really good goalkeeper. He's just went on loan to Scott Brown's Ayr United last week. But if you bring in a number 1, a solid top quality goalkeeper, then you still have Scott Bain there, who Brendan Rodgers has labelled in the past as a reliable number 2. Why not just promote one of the academy goalkeepers to that third choice spot ahead of Siegrist?
Did we sell Connor Hazard?
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah, he's away down south.
Yeah, I thought it was a loan. I like this cack here for the sense of like kind of in line with everything you guys are saying. It can't be a free transfer. It can't be a project goalkeeper. It has to be someone that is comfortable on the pitch, that is a number 1 keeper by rights. They've earned it. They're not getting their chance here, kind of thing. Those guys aren't cheap, you know. I actually recorded a video yesterday about the channel, just looking at the goalkeepers across the top 5 leagues that we could afford, with our fingers crossed, you know, and like who you might want to look at or whatever. So if we get this guy, that'd be cool. I wouldn't mind 2 goalkeepers if we did go and pick a prodigy out of Europe and try and get him in for cup games and try and develop him on the conveyor belt. I don't mind that, but it can't be the first keeper we buy, because you know they'll just, after one good game, they'll go, let's just play him, you know, and then we'll repeat the cycle again. You know, we'll be doomed to repeat history with James McCarthy transfers and all this kind of nonsense. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see if Siegrist hangs around much longer. Bain's obviously here for a long time, and yeah, the goalkeeper thing, it has to be a serious purchase. They can't be cheaping out on this when they're trying to be cute with it. And because of the Kaki, it's good to see here. He's getting some Turkey caps, and Trabzonspor have played European football since he's been there, so that's cool. But I really don't. It was the one thing that put me off Kelleher. It's just like, you're not getting a goalkeeper. You know, you're getting should be good. You know, might be a bargain. Might be.
It's hard to judge, isn't it? With a goalkeeper who's not played consistently. He's played maybe in League Cup games and the odd time when Alisson's been injured. You would like to see a goalkeeper you can properly analyse their data and what they're doing with the shots they face. So if that's me in the recruitment department, it seems a bit of a risk, and it's one of the sort of ones. He's Irish, so people would love to see him at the club. It all comes into it, doesn't it?
Yeah, Dermot Desmond would love Kelleher. Let's be honest, he'll be like, "Oh yeah, he's Irish." Yeah, I know. If Dermot Desmond, he's Irish. The fans will love it. From Liverpool, what a signing!
Picture of a tattoo.
Exactly. Picture of the Clover tattoo and Ireland flag. If you've got one of them, you can sign for us. But no, realistically, they need to be putting a lot of work into this goalkeeping one. It's probably the most crucial signing they'll make of the summer. Let's be honest here. There's not really. I think left back's the only real position, potentially a winger as well, that screams to me that Celtic should be signing in the summer. Striker if Adam Idah doesn't sign permanently. So it'll be interesting to see how things go in developing that. Kakir would be interesting.
With the reported kind of rumours that we're going to have a change in the transfer department or the personnel or whatever, I think whoever does get sacked will have a job at St Mirren, because St Mirren would agree that Celtic did sign the best midfielder in the league this summer. And it looks like they're going to try and keep him for even longer. That's the reports I've been reading this morning. So Quandary, as I'm calling him, or Quadri, I've not quite nailed it yet, but St Mirren want to extend him even longer. I'm reading that.
He's had a great start there, hasn't he?
Yeah,
even the goals he's scoring for holding midfield, it's incredible to see that he's even got that part of his game where he can score goals, because you don't always see that with a lot of holding midfielders. Sometimes they're limited, but he's just brought a new dynamic to that St Mirren side. And even looking with the results they've had, albeit with the Livingston loss, but Quan has been excellent at St Mirren. And realistically, it's a good way to watch him and judge him in Scottish football, to see how much he progresses. And realistically, I think St Mirren could be reliant on a player like him for getting top 6 and solidifying their place there. And if we can watch that over the next season,
My bad, lads. That was the alarm for Kwon coming back to Celtic to save the season. That's what that was. But yeah, it was the quotes from Stephen Robinson, the St Mirren manager. He's actually said we're in discussions with Celtic to extend the loan, so that is confirmed that they're wanting him. Like you said, he's been doing brilliant there. He's made a huge impact. Could have had 2 goals against Rangers. Scored from the edge of the box. Could have. The goal of the weekend was very unfortunate to be ruled out. Picked up the ball in midfield. The foul was later given by VAR, but skinned his man, wee step over, finishing at the bottom corner. And you've seen the passion with which he celebrated that goal. And it seems like he's a big character in that St Mirren dressing room as well, because Stephen Robinson said in the quotes, when he was talking about extending Kwon's loan, that they get him to sing in the dressing room after every single game, which is quite interesting.
Brilliant.
There's a video that went about.
I've seen one. I thought it was an initiation thing, but
yeah, that was his initiation.
Not a match ritual.
Yeah, it's apparently the ritual.
After
After every win, Kwon sings, which is very funny. I wonder if Brendan would definitely love that. Get him singing 4-leaf clover and all this stuff when he comes back to Celtic.
So funny.
But yeah, he's done really well. If we've seen it before with players going out on loan in Scotland and coming back and doing well for Celtic, Liam Scales, Christopher Ayer, Cal McGregor went down to Notts County, done really well. Ryan Christie at Aberdeen, now Kwon could be the latest one to do so. Be interesting to see if Celtic let them take him on loan. Potentially it's one where you bring him back for pre-season, see how he does, play him in a couple of games here and there, as James McCarthy would say, and see how he does. And if he does well, then maybe it's one where you keep him and you think he can challenge for a place for the remainder of the next season, or whether you just send him back to St Mirren and let him develop for another year there. But Bosun Lawal is another player who's been doing really well out on loan this season. Go check out the Celtic Youth and Loan updates on Twitter and on the Celtics Are Here YouTube channel. Shameless plug.
I'll put that on screen at the end.
Aye. But there you go if you want to find out more. But Kwon, we'll see how he does between now and the end of the season. He's still got a long way to go with St Mirren. But going by how he's going so far, he's doing really well, and he's a big character as well, which is good to see.
Yeah. The last thing I'll kind of say on this is it makes the Telio loan even stupider, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, why not give him to Livingston or somebody? You know, somebody that's desperate for a winger. You know, and just then you could have seen a bit of that action with him.
The way I look at it as well is, with Rangers, if these sides get results against Rangers, it helps us. So why not loan these players to teams in Scotland? You say Livingston, if we loan Tillio and he scores against Rangers and it ends up a draw, that helps us at the end of the season, in all honesty. So if you have these players and you know they're at a certain level and they could contribute to sides in the Scottish Premiership, why not just loan them out? And it makes an adaptation period even easier. I know with Tillio it's obvious, he went back to Australia and that's why it was so easy for him to adapt. But if you're loaning players to other sides in Scotland, it makes it easier to adapt to the life, because it's going to be a little bit further away maybe, but not too far. And with St Mirren, it's Paisley in comparison to Glasgow. That's not too far. You think that's quite a good move for Kwon, and he's not had to change too much in his life. So for me, with players like that, you've got to be loaning them to Scottish sides to see what level they're at. And if they go to a side and they go crazy and they contribute tons of goals, it helps us because we know they're proven in the league.
Yeah.
Tillio for Thistle. Tillio to Partick Thistle, here we go.
the goal he scored at the weekend, by the way, Tillio, was a brilliant goal.
Lovely.
It takes the touch, dribbles forward, cuts inside and his man finishes into the far corner. Brilliant. But yeah, I think loans in Scotland benefit Celtic players. Like I said, Christopher Ayer, Ryan Christie, Liam Scales, and now potentially Kwon.
Catch you later, Michael. Hail. Thanks for coming on the show, mate.
See you later. Cheers.
Ryan Christie is like proper flavour of the month down there. You know, they're loving him in a kind of box-to-box midfield role, much deeper than any of us ever seen him play, you know. So, yeah, it's all about minutes, it's all about reps, and it's about high-value ones, you know. So, when we are selling players, this is kind of the part of the thought process that goes into it for like a Bournemouth or, you know, whoever is going to come and buy a player off is like, are those 150 appearances in the Scottish League going to translate to the Championship or translate to the Premier League or whatever? And for us, A-League appearances for Marco Tillio clearly don't translate into, you know, that's why he's not broken into the team. So sending him back to do more of that, it just feels mad. So
yeah, the only parallel they've probably looked at is the Tom Rogic one, where he went back to Australia after he'd done well. But I think we'd all agree that it's more beneficial to have players That's it, from Celtic out on loan in Scotland.
Yeah. The last thing we've got on the to-do list here is just a preview for the Dundee game. Now, I feel we've kind of went over the Dundee game kind of early on, Josh, but we always finish the show off, obviously, with a bit of a score prediction. How is the game going to pan out, and what do we think? Now, midweek, at home, under the floodlights, we have got an insane record. Like, we just don't drop points. So, with that being said, I think we're going to probably score 3 or 4 again, similar to the Motherwell game, but it might be like we get 2 or 3 of them in the first half, and then the second half is a bit dry and boring, rather than the way it was at the weekend. What's your thoughts and feelings, Josh?
It'll be an interesting game. Obviously, we've played Dundee twice this season, beat them twice. I think it's the second last midweek game of the season, because we've got this, and then you'll have one midweek game after the split. So it's only the penultimate one, 28th of February, whatever date the fixture is. It'll be interesting to see the team, the lineup. Obviously, we went through it before, the midfield options, the options out in the wing. We feel like Yang and Adam Idah both have to start the game. And I'll go with Celtic to win. As usual, you'd go with, unless we're playing Atletico Madrid or something. I'll go with we score prediction. I'll say 3-1 Celtic. I'll go with the same scoreline as the weekend. I think could score a couple of goals. Dundee look pretty good this season, challenging for top 6 after coming up from the Championship is really good. They're a real dark horse. Interesting to see how Owen Beck does in this one. I'll be keeping my eye on him. Obviously, we know the transfer saga from January. Let's be honest, if he didn't get those 8 minutes for Liverpool away at Bournemouth, he would have been a Celtic player right now, and he probably would have been starting the game for Celtic tomorrow night instead of Dundee. I think that'll be one that gets revisited in the summer, personally. We'll see just how Owen Beck does tomorrow night under the lights at Parkhead.
You going to the game yourself, Josh?
Yeah, I will be.
Yeah, well, to yourself, mate, and anyone else that's going to the game, travel safe, have fun, and I'll go with a 4-0. Hail, hail.
Cheers.